Thank you so much for giving me the floor. Good evening, everyone seated in here. The question that has to do with our existence before colonization. Actually, there are lots of evidences to prove that we were a people before the colonialists. And like she started by saying that Africa civilization began in Africa. And we take that civilization, many people refer to Egypt. You know, when we say civilization actually began in Egypt. But long before then, we also had our own platforms, our own people that we referred to, our generations, our genealogies, if we can go by that, our ancestors. And these evidences could be traced from various archaeological sites, historical facts, and even anthropological records. Now, if we look at the people from the Nok people in Nigeria, they are said to have been to have lived some 1,000 years ago, and they were discovered from these archaeological excavation sites. And we also have evidences from the caves of the Blombos in the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. Those areas that captured the history of Africans, of human beings that existed, Africans that existed in the caves in forms of drawings, in forms of different shapes that they took. And again, when we come back to our African oral narratives, they tell our stories. They tell who we are, even in the oral forms. I remember growing up with my parents at a tender age. Every evening, I used to be so anxious to listen to stories from my dad. And he would read the stories to me in our dialect, in Namso, and I would really be thrilled about those stories. That is the way that our people preserved our culture. They preserved our histories in form of oral narratives. And these are some of those evidences we can fall back to, because these stories are said to have been handed down from one generation to another. And then when we look at the history of migration and the aspect of trade in Africa, we realize that Africa had a very good roots of trade, that the trans-Saharan trade routes, where our people traded in salt, in gold, in iron, and so on, all around Africa. These migratory routes, they tell a lot about the existence of Africans before colonization. And when we now go back to what also makes a part of that civilization, we look at Egypt as a cradle of civilization. We see, even till today, the footprints are still visible, even in Cairo. If you are to go there today, you see the pyramids of Giza. They are still standing tall. Those are evidences of African civilizations in their own various countries. And we cannot talk about Egypt and go without the writings, the hieroglyphics, which is a part of them that started this writing. And we also move to the great city of Babylon. We can remember the Babylonian city, which was strongly built, and they were also known as these good people, good in their structures, very good monuments that they built that still stand tall today. And that transcends down to right to the Mali Empire. This Mali Empire, we see it, in those days it was countries around West Africa, what is today known as Mali, you know, and that Mali Empire came from the great king who was able to head, a great warrior who was able to fight and establish, this empire, Sundiata Keita. We cannot talk of Mali without mentioning Sundiata Keita. So these are historical records that go down to tell us actually that Africans existed. And I always ask my question, and I ask myself this question: that when we refer to colonialist Mbu Park, you know, that he discovered River Niger. And I asked myself, were there more people then before his arrival? Our people were there, they were fishing, they were catching their fish on the same river. They lived by these riversides, they did their farming, and all of that. And then somebody wakes up from somewhere one day to come and say, he discovered River Niger. So I feel embarrassed when we hear such narratives. So the only thing we can give him credit was that he discovered the people, and not that he discovered River Niger. So I would just pause here for a while.
Thank you so much for that wonderful intervention.